You are listening to South Niagara Conversations, a podcast presented by the South Niagara Chambers of Commerce, along with 105.1 The River and 101.1 More FM.
Well, hello, and thanks to everyone who's joined us for our South Niagara Conversation series. For those of you who are tuning in from afar, we represent the communities of Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, Port Colborne, Wainfleet, Welland, and Pelham. We're located in Southern Ontario, no better place to live, work, or play. Joining me today is my guest co-host, Jeff Neal. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning, Dolores. Doing great. Sunny day in South Niagara.
Love it.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It is a beautiful sunny day, and so there's nothing to complain about. This morning, we've got some local superstars, Jeff. It's three unique businesses to discuss some of their experiences over the past year, as well as some of the very cool opportunities that they've pursued. This is going to be a real interesting conversation because we're going to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. Jeff, who do we have joining us this morning?
We've got Andy Murison from Niagara Craft Distillers, Dave Nordquist from MiniWarGaming, and Sarah Lacharity from Raw Materials Company. We're going to start today by letting them provide a brief description of their companies. So we'll go in that order. Andy, tell us what your company does.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Dolores. Thanks for having us on this morning. My name is Andy. I'm one of the co-founders of Niagara Falls Craft Distillers. We're a distillery and manufacturer of alcohol beverages based in Niagara Falls, Stanley Avenue to be precise. We've been going since 2017 and proud to be part of the Niagara community. Our business is we do two things, Jeff. First of all, we manufacture our own distilled spirit products like vodka and gin and whiskey. I think Dolores has had a couple of gins in the past at our facility. And we've had some challenges and some upside through the COVID pandemic with that particular business, which we'll discuss. Another thing we do is we do manufacture of product for other people. So a lot of brands that you'll see in LCBO get manufactured at our facility, and that's been a lot of fun getting to know some new people and seeing some different creative ideas. So we basically do a lot of distilled products, and we're delighted to be part of the community.
Very interesting. No gin this morning, right, Dolores?
Absolutely not. No.
David, tell us about MiniWarGaming.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me on the call. I'm a YouTuber. My business partner and I we make videos about miniature tabletop wargaming, hence the name MiniWarGaming. And so what we do is essentially we play board games and we record ourselves playing board games with each other and with guests that come from all over the world now. And we upload them to YouTube, and we also upload the videos to our site. And we have a membership site where people support us. And in addition to this, we have a hotel in Welland where people can stay, and they are themed rooms like our studio. So we have a total of 6 studios, and they are themed like settings in the game that we play. So there's a fantasy themed room and a sci-fi themed room and a post-apocalyptic room. And the same thing goes for the hotel suites. They're also themed that way. So when gamers come and visit us from all over the world, they stay in the rooms that they play and the armies that they play on the tabletop, and then they get immersed in the world that they play. And so that's primarily what our business is. We are also delving into game creation right now, which we can talk more about later, but that's the gist of what we do.
The building looks phenomenal from the outside. I still haven't been in the 4 years you guys have been there, but at some point I'll make
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you very much. Sarah, how about you?
Morning, everyone. I work for a family of companies in Port Colborne. Raw Materials Company is a battery recycling company. We process alkaline batteries on site at our facility. In addition to that, we offer recycling programs for mercury-bearing waste and hazardous waste, electronics. I also work for International Metal Salvage, and we do ferrous and non-ferrous metal recycling. And also Iron Earth Canada, which is all natural soil remineralizer, which is in stores throughout Niagara.
Very nice. Okay, we're going to start the conversation now. And wide open question. What was the biggest challenge you faced heading into the pandemic? And we'll go in reverse order. So, Sarah.
Okay. Probably the biggest challenge for our company was just adapting right off the hop. We were very fortunate to be deemed essential in the beginning, which was really great for everyone. We were all really grateful to be able to keep our jobs and continue to service the public. But it was adapting to the new way. Unfortunately, due to the nature of our business, we weren't able to do a lot of remote working. You can't receive material or sort material from home. So everyone had to be on site at all times. So taking those special new procedures and protocols in place and implementing all of those. And then, just trying to service our sites. In Ontario, battery sales went through the roof during the pandemic. So there was more batteries than ever out there. People had more time on their hands to actually look for recycling opportunities. And then for us to try to service those sites. And we do have a lot of public collections. We have over 5,000 public collections in Ontario. Majority of those were closed during the pandemic. And when they were open, trying to service them was tricky. I have my driver waiting in line with everybody else to, do a curbside pickup. And courier, we had a lot of courier issues as well, just because of the volume with courier shipments. But it was just, I think our biggest challenge was just adapting to the new way of servicing our sites and finding new opportunities to service.
Great, thanks. Well, Dave, you talked about 6 hotel rooms, so I got a feeling I know where this is going, but tell us about your biggest challenge heading into the pandemic.
Well, it's interesting, Sarah, you should say that your experience is actually kind of the reverse of what we experienced, because we were not essential. And so we had to shut down right away. So we were all at home, having to work from home. But we were able to figure out how to work remotely with each other and how to make videos with each other and kind of at home in home settings. My wife learned the game that I play, and which I never thought that she would in the 15 years that I've been doing it. But she's like, Dave, if I have to learn how to play Warhammer, and if that means saving the business, then I'll learn how to play Warhammer, which was kind of a dream come true for me. So we made video series together, and then also some of our employees had to work from home and doing tutorials on how to assemble and paint the miniatures. And so we had to actually come up with new content that we don't normally produce. But because so many other channels in our hobby space, in our industry, they were also having to do similar things, the audience was very receptive and very appreciative of the fact that we were still trying to do something to contribute to the community. And because there were so many more people at home watching videos and having time on their hands, we actually saw an increase of traffic about 40%. So it was a combination of us doing things and innovating at home and really trimming the fat to see how we can make things more efficient, what we absolutely didn't need, what we didn't need in the business and what we could do without, and what we could just focus on. And so we were able to really streamline our processes and make things a lot more efficient. And at the same time grow, actually. We grew in our memberships and in our monthly subscriptions, and we grew in traffic.
Andy, oh, there you are.
I'll go right back to the reverse and say that we were also deemed an essential business. In fact, we had to go through 2 fairly significant hurdles over the course of the start of the pandemic. So to start off with, we were deemed an essential service in terms of alcohol manufacture. We were again very grateful for that opportunity, because we wanted to keep our production plant open, keep the jobs in play. However, we very quickly, the first issue we had is that we expected all the main sources of our production volume to basically shut down, and that indeed happened. So hotels, bars, restaurants, it was a big customer of some of our products. They all obviously closed down. The LCBO it didn't close down, but it was much more difficult for us to do business with the LCBO in terms of being able to go in and talk to customers and consumers and do sampling. So that had a material effect on our business. Thirdly, the ability to export, and we had lined up some exporting orders into the Far East markets and also to some parts of the US. That was also closed down as well with some significant border restrictions. So we had some fairly challenging start. The one thing that we could sell without restriction was operating line time. And so we took the opportunity to go and find some more clients to basically produce their products in our production lines, and that kept us going and helped us. So that helped us going through the first part. Then the next phase we had was tied to a business we'd not been in before. That was sanitizer. So Dillon's, they're one of our, I guess our compatriots in the local market, did an exceptional job at the outset of the pandemic, donating sanitizer to the local community. And so we thought it was a very good idea. So we followed suit on that. We were active in the local community, donating sanitizers to much needed non-profit charities. But we also found some customers as well. And we had a good couple of months of doing manufacturing of sanitizer. And then supply chain came back online for the big customers. So we had our second problem in that basically the sanitizer business dried up for a lot of the small distillers and brewers across all of Canada, never mind Niagara. Further exacerbated by, candidly, I don't want to get political, but there was a government decision to take a close to $400 million contract to an offshore company, which enabled a lot of companies in our position. We're sitting on a lot of inventory that we couldn't sell. So we had a second problem we had to overcome in terms of trying to figure out how we manage a sanitizer business that we'd all get ourselves into. How we've dealt with it is basically go back to our core. We've gone out there and focused on manufacturing of alcohol. We've successfully sold the line time. And as the market is beginning to open up in terms of conditions, as we get into early 2021, we started to get a better performance going into LCBO. And then as we get to the back end of the year, our export sales are beginning to open up again. We're back in bars and restaurants. So it has been a tough 18 months for the industry and no different for our business. And what I would say is that a very overused word has been the word pivot. And we pivoted about 3 or 4 times during the course of the last 18 months to make sure that we can continue to grow, sustain, keep our jobs, and stay safe within this environment. So it's been a very interesting 18 months for everybody, ourselves included.
Yeah, like these are 3 really interesting stories because you've all said, we trimmed, we changed, we pivoted, we reevaluated, we refocused. And we talk about all of the bad things about this pandemic, but there are nuggets of good things. And I think for business, it really forced us to look at things differently and to really make some changes. Does anybody want to talk about maybe what some of the biggest changes that you had to make that maybe, you wouldn't have ever thought, we're going to go in this direction or do something like this? I mean, I guess for you, David, you kind of touched on it, playing from home, right? And, is that something that moving forward, you guys will continue to do?
Now that we're able to be back in the studio, we hope to not have to do that. But in the event that we have to do that in the future, we know that we can do that.
Right.
Which was nice to know. And we also discovered that we are, in terms of the types of businesses that we are classified as, we're classified as a film and television business because it's entertainment based, it's media, which we didn't know before because we make YouTube videos. And so that's that feels like it's not film and television, but it is in terms of like where we fall. And so we've had to, every time they would make restrictions and changes, we would have to kind of see, all right, how does this affect us? And do we have to go back home again? And luckily we didn't have to. And then there was other things like, do we wear masks in videos? Do we have to maintain social distance in videos? And then we discovered that we didn't have to because it's the same as being on a film set because film production was still continuing. And when you're in a film, obviously, whatever the scene happens to be is what it is. And so you're not going to have masks all the time. And so just little kind of, as the word was being thrown around, we were pivoting along the way, right?
Right.
Make little adjustments and changes.
Right, right. And Sarah, you have such an interesting personal story. So Sarah, works for this family of companies in Port Colborne, which is a beautiful town here in South Niagara City, actually. And where are you this morning, Sarah? Tell us what's been going on with you.
Well, prior to the pandemic, I am in sales. So I did a lot of traveling. I was on the road at least 3 days a week, sometimes 4 or 5. And yeah, traveling across Ontario, traveling everywhere. And then when the pandemic hit, no one wanted to see me anymore. So all of the presentations and conversations that I had to be turned to remote. It was a big transition for us. We work with a lot of municipalities, and municipalities have very strict guidelines about, working from home procedures. And so everyone and continue to talk to wants to meet remotely. It's been awesome, to be honest. It's a way more efficient. It's great for our environment. We're cutting down our greenhouse gas emissions without the travel. Obviously we're saving money, but time-wise, I can have a meeting in Toronto, in Sudbury, and the US all in one day, and sit from my home. And so it also gave me the opportunity to move. And so right now I am in Cape Breton and working for Port Colborne still. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we had to learn how we do work from home and how we're still able to communicate effectively with our customers and our clients, and develop all of these presentations that we would normally do in person. I am now doing school presentations with classes and with schools, and all of that would be in person normally. So it's the pandemic has really changed the way we do some of our work. But I would say it is definitely a good change. It's great for the environment, and it changes the way and how you effectively communicate with others.
Yeah. I mean, it really changed your entire life, because you packed up your 3 kids, your 2 dogs, your cat, and your husband, and you made the 20-hour trek out to Cape Breton, and there you are, and you're still, working at a job that you love, mm-hmm. and just a totally different lifestyle that probably wouldn't have happened.
No.
Right?
No, I would never have been able to do this normally. Because I'm on the road and I'm physically seeing people. But because of the pandemic, yes, this opportunity was available, and I was able to do it, and I'm very grateful for it, because it is nice. I've been working for raw materials for the last 11 years now, so to get up and move across the country and change my job would be a more drastic change. So, but I'm able to do everything that I normally could do, and again, thanks to the pandemic. So.
Right. And we don't hear those words too often, right?
No.
So
I'm representing Cape Breton this morning with my shirt, which you can't see. I've got a Cabot golf shirt on.
Celtic pride there. That's awesome.
Absolutely. That's
fantastic. Andy, I want to bring you back into the conversation. I was having a conversation with it was one of our other series, and we were talking to one of the people from Greaves Jams, and they were saying that their biggest challenge was glass containers. And I can imagine, I mean, the best gin comes in a glass container, right?
Yeah, the best gin, Niagara Falls Distillers Craft Gin, absolutely.
Right.
The biggest challenge we've seen as we come out of the pandemic, and it's probably the wrong word for us to use from our business, but we're definitely seeing a hangover effect into running a general business right now. The biggest issue we have is undoubtedly getting our hands on certain raw materials at the right time and at the right price. We've seen tremendous fluctuation and prices of cans and the price of bottle. Most of it's driven by the freight price, depending where it's coming in from, either from Asian markets or from the US. But it's been extremely difficult for us to provide ourselves with the appropriate raw materials. To give you an example, we made a commitment in our business to produce our own proprietary bottle. So we took it off. We worked with a Canadian company, the ticket manufacturer offshore, to get that product. We placed and paid for the order in December, and we finally got the bottles in the first week in October. And then when we asked the supplier to do a repeat order, they said, "Yeah, no problem. We'll see. We'll touch it down in 13 months from now." So we're constantly having to go out there and find. So as a business, we redeployed one of our existing team members to look after inventory and procurement. And whereas that was not a full-time position, our company has now become full-time, just to make sure that we're ahead of the supply chain, that we're not going to short customers, that our clients can stay with their raw materials. But yeah, the experience that one of your other members described to you is very, very real and very problematic for us. And we don't see that reflecting any change within our 6 to 9 months. We still think it's going to happen. So we're having to kind of monitor it, and it is having an impact on a lot of things like, cash and warehousing and supply and demand. So it is quite frankly one of the biggest challenges we have right now within our industry.
So can you use other kinds of containers? I guess glass would be optimal, but is there any thinking or innovation around different types of what's the word I'm looking for, Jeff?
Well, Dolores, I think you're talking about drinking wine out of a box. And,
which I never.
And that's more of a Welland thing than anywhere else.
There's definitely a source of innovation that we're looking at we're working with. Now, we're fortunate that one of our other partners that we have within the chamber is, I'll publicly mention, is a bonded warehouse of BW Canada. They're a very close partner of ours. They've actually been working very closely with us to find alternate solutions and supply solutions for us. And so to answer your specific question, it can be quite challenging to make a significant change to products which are being produced and sold in the masses, and particularly where there's an industry norm expectation where gin comes in glass and alcoholic coolers comes in cans. So we are looking at options to do this, but where we become more successful is actually work within the chamber and the members and help us find solutions to our problems. So as it pertains right now, we haven't shorted any existing customers in terms of supplying of cans or bottles. We're just scrambling every day to find an alternate supplier to help us get there. And as I said, we expect this to go for the next 6 to 9 months. It's going to be a very difficult time for the packaging goods industry, for sure.
Yeah, that's a huge challenge for a number of folks. Are any of you experiencing labor challenges? Because we're hearing through our chamber network that across the board, that is a huge problem for employers right now, and we don't see any relief in sight. Does anybody want to talk to that at all?
We are also having supply issues along with Andy. We have containers. We have plastic pails that we've been having trouble sourcing. We have drums. We go through a lot of drums, particularly fourth quarter every year. All of our curbside programs are running, and we go through hundreds and hundreds of drums, and we've been having some crazy supply issues, and the price of all of our supplies has drastically increased. Resin costs for the plastic, our pails that have really literally doubled in price for us. So we have gotten creative, and we are trying to reuse as many materials as we can. We're trying to source other reusable materials so that we can continue to use our supply. But on top of the supply issues, yes, we definitely have labor issues as well. Just we've had a few problems just because people are very happy staying home if they are on CERB or collecting CERB. They're happy to be there, and it's hard to find those positions right now, for sure.
Yeah.
There's an interesting double-edged sword with these labor issues with the mobility and work from home that people have. So now a company in Port Colborne can attract labor from all over the country. Sarah, you're obviously in Cape Breton. So if they're recruiting, they can look nationally. But then you have the flip side that their employees could be poached by Toronto employers or Vancouver employers that are willing to pay a higher wage. So I think the labor market is going to get really interesting going forward, and not necessarily in a good way for most businesses.
Yeah, you're right.
We find during the course of summer, so summer for peak production for us is really between the months of about March till about September, as we help our customers get their products ready for the LCBO shelves and for the May 24 weekend, and then subsequent provide supply over the course of summer, all the way through to about Labor Day and maybe beyond. We found labor over the course of summer was very difficult to retain and recruit and retain, and expensive as well. We did have some problems as we've come into the shoulder season, and maybe it's because of what's the changes in SERB. We find that it's the problems are subsiding a little. What I would say is that we do have a very good team. We've a team with us now for 3 years at our facility. We've got a lot of people who've been there a long time. We're delighted to say. So we do have the core of our business is very good. And so what we've done with our business is we've made sure that on the critical roles within our business, we've put the core people that have been loyal with us into those positions, the important positions. Where we've had the opportunity, we've had more transient labor or more transient positions, and we've struggled there. Sometimes we've had to go to third-party recruitment companies to help us. So we've had some difficulties, but I would say that I think it's beginning to soften a little bit. Now, that said, I think when the market completely opens up in Niagara Falls and all the restrictions ease, and the casinos and the bars and restaurants open up, I suspect we'll have some challenges as we get into next spring and next summer. But we're trying to plan ahead for that already in terms of the positions and the contracts we put in place. But labor has been one of those issues we've had to kind of manage on a month by month, week by week basis as we went through our peak production times.
Yeah, that makes sense. And David, I'm sure that you have both supply issues, because you guys also make the pieces, right? Like the game.
Right? We don't make the pieces, but we do purchase the pieces, and there have been supply issues for that, kind of like on a global scale, right? The stores all over in many continents, they can't get supply and they can't get it quickly, or they sell out really quick and they can't get resupplied. And it's interesting because in terms of the labor challenges, we've recently hired a new video editor, and so when we posted the job, normally it would be a local posting, right? But what we did is we actually we made it available to anybody. So if they lived in the UK and they wanted to apply, they could. If they're on the West Coast, they could apply. So we actually got applications from all over for that, and at that point, it was the best person for the job because people were willing to work remotely or relocate if needed. And so that plus also additional content producers, we've recently hired somebody, or contracted actually, someone from Atlanta, Georgia, which we never would have in the past because of, we just never would have thought about it, right? It's like, okay, who can we get? Who lives close? Who's within an hour? That seems pretty reasonable as a commute, right? But now it's a completely different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and we really have to wrap our brains around that, because there's pros and cons for sure. Like Jeff said, it really opens it up to getting the best talent for the specific roles. But then if you're in a position where you need people on site, and many of us do, it is a challenge. It's just going to continue.
Now, Dolores, we had labor issues in Niagara prior to the pandemic. So I think this has just escalated. The pandemic has just escalated the labor shortages. And those are across like all industries, all sectors are experiencing, it was a high topic of conversation pre-pandemic as well.
You're right, and you actually participated in some of our conversations with various ministries to look at immigration and different ways of tackling the problem. And as Andy mentioned, in Niagara Falls, once the casino's up and running and all the attractions and all of the hotels and restaurants, it is going to get worse, because even before the pandemic, there were a shortage of things like housekeepers and front desk reception and all of that. So yeah, the problem will get worse, I'm sure. And I'm sure we'll have the conversation again on the podcast.
This one's not going away anytime soon.
It's not. And I feel like just this week alone, I've had like 5 different conversations with 5 different groups about this very topic. And Jeff, I'm sure that you're hearing it from a lot of your clients.
Every day, yeah. And some interesting and unique problems come out of it. And when David said contract, made me much happier. But I start to twitch when people start talking about hiring employees in the United States or in Europe, and the business requirements with them. You're now paying payroll to an employee in another country. So do you need to remit source deductions in that other country and register as a business and blah, blah, blah. It gets a little crazy, but David said contract, and that makes me feel much better. Just get invoiced and pay his invoices and move on.
So you know what the point is, Jeff? The point is, if you're doing that, you need a really good accountant.
It is true. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to get to some of the good stuff and some of the opportunities that you're seeing or planning for as we come out of the strange time. Who'd like to start with that?
I'll start.
Yeah, go for it, David.
Okay, so are we talking about things that we're doing, things that we're moving forward, and things that have sprung up? So particularly in our industry, in the tabletop gaming industry, there's a semi-new thing called 3D printing. And 3D printing isn't a new thing, because there's car parts and kind of you name it, everything is being 3D printed now. But particularly in the gaming industry, where specific file types called STLs, which are 3D files, can be made to create miniatures and designs of models. And anyone with a 3D printer, if they have the STL file, they can print it. And so normally, when you see models, you buy them at the store or you order them online. But with the popularization of 3D printers, that's threatening a lot of the companies that make these models, because there's a lot of talented sculptors, 3D sculptors out there, who are creating models or alternate versions of models that can be proxied in games. And so what we've done is we've partnered with another company who specializes in game design and creation. And part of our membership site currently involves having access to additional content. But what we're delving into is actually making these STL files available for our members, where if they want to print and play with them, they can. And this is a huge thing that a lot of companies are doing in the industry. They're creating membership sites where people have access to a new crop of designs that they can print and play with. And it's becoming more and more popular all the time. So that's one of the things that we're delving into in a big way.
Is there any way to protect those files from ending up on like Thingiverse or another site like that? Or are you just relying on the integrity of your customers?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. Ultimately, there is no way of completely stopping it or policing it, because the internet's the internet and it can just spread like wildfire, right? So, but something like Thingiverse, where that's a very big, well-known site, we can easily see if something is up there and then just post a claim and get it taken down. So that's relatively easy. But I guess the sharing amongst friends or whatever, like you can't really stop that too much. Right. But what we've found is that's all. There's always going to be a degree of that. There's always going to be a percentage of people that do that. So that's it's like pirating movies and downloading songs and stuff. It's always going to exist. But people want to be the first to get something. They want it first before anyone else, right? 6 weeks later, 6 months later, if they get these files for free, that's great. But they want to be the first to get it. So the vast majority of people are willing to pay to get it first. And so that's what we focus on, because we're not going to be able to control all the other stuff.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. And I can appreciate what you're saying about membership and keeping it fresh and innovative and value add, right? Because as a Chamber of Commerce, we're in the same boat. You're always looking ahead. Sarah, do you want to? Tell us what.
I think Raw Materials Company is really excited about all the batteries that are in Ontario right now. And I think throughout the pandemic, more awareness has been created about where to recycle and how to recycle. Our curbside programs are all starting right now throughout Ontario, and majority of the municipalities some of them have actually doubled their collections, which is really, really amazing. It just says that, with residents spring cleaning for the last 18 months, they really are looking into different opportunities to see where they can recycle and what items are recyclable. And I think that's really, really cool. And that's great for us. And, the more batteries diverted from our landfills, the better it is for our environment. And I'm excited about all the batteries out there, and fingers crossed we're not going to have any more shutdowns, right. And we'll be able to continue to service everyone. And
awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Andy?
Yeah, I'd say there's three things that have come out from us that's been really strong for what we've learned. Number one is, as we look at the future of our business, it's really helped us understand where we are and where we want to go with our business and what the plans are to get there. So we've had the opportunity and, dare I say the time to put a bit of forward planning into the business and to help redefine what we want to do and what we want to achieve and who we want to do it with. And so, it's what it was. We found it was quite an interesting moment when you're operating a business as norm, and then you get to March 2020, and then you're looking straight in the barrel of the fact you may have to shut the thing down for a couple of months because you don't think you get any custom, because of what's happening to David. A lot of if what happens if it becomes non-essential and you have to close down. So we've taken opportunity to really think through how we want to kind of grow and develop our business, and that was something that you sometimes take for granted when you're in the day-to-day trenches, and you're too busy looking at the urgent as opposed to thinking through the important. So helping us get some more considered time and thought process for 3 to 5 year strat plans helped. Second thing for us is, we've definitely seen a significant shift over the course of the last 18 months where a lot of consumers of alcohol are looking for different choices, and indeed are willing to support smaller, local, more personal businesses. And that's not just in Niagara, that's all over the world. And to give you an example, a lot of the manufacturing we do are for products that we don't own. But they're owned and run by smaller businesses, local to Ontario, some are local to Niagara region, and the LCBO is showing much more favour to accepting these products into the market. The consumer is showing much more favour to putting it into their repertoire, and these companies don't have manufacturing locations like the bigger operators, so that helps us keep our lines operating with products which are deemed to be from smaller operators, smaller companies, and provide more of a local choice. And I say the third thing we've learned from this, and this is probably by far and away the most important, is just recognizing the high quality talent that we have within our business. Again, sometimes you can take your people for granted and your staff for granted, but we've got in terms of our leadership and our plant manager, our operations director, our finance, our controller, our local salesperson, our customer client person, our HR lead. We've got some very, very talented people here in our business, and with that people in mind, you have this growing belief that anything is possible. So we've ultimately come together as a team. We operate with the same end goal and play with the chance to kind of think through what that plan looks like. And then we're supporting, a changing consumer and customer demand, which is thinking through, I want more choice. I want to hear better stories from smaller operators. I want to hear about people's, life plans, why they wanted to go and create, a Moscow Mule, for an example. Excuse me. So we've definitely we got some sustainable benefits coming out of the pandemic, which we think can help our business continue to grow and within our community.
Yeah, that's great. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Small Business Enterprise Center, City of Niagara Falls. Thank you for your support on the podcast.
Do you have an idea for a small business? Maybe you're trying to grow a business that you've already started. Whatever the case, the Niagara Falls Small Business Enterprise Center is a community service that is here to help, offering entrepreneurs the tools to start and grow their businesses. The Small Business Enterprise Center is your one-stop for free business information and advice. Serving Niagara Falls and South Niagara, learn more about how we can help you and your business succeed at niagarafalls.ca/SBEC.
Now, Andy, I want to come back to you. It's like music to my ears to hear you say that you took the time to figure out how you want to grow and just, give some time to that. Because my biggest concern, and I've had this conversation with Jeff a few times, is that through this pandemic, a lot of businesses were just in survival mode, right? And there's, subsidies and grants that the government is providing small business with, not just small business, but business with. And a lot of those businesses are just, okay, day to day, I gotta, just survive. And I worry that as we come out of this, they haven't given thought to how do I stay relevant post pandemic? Like, where do I need to be? Where do I want to go? How am I going to grow this business? And to hear you say that that's, what you took the time to do is fantastic. Because I think a lot of, and Jeff, you might want to jump in here too, because I think we're going to have some issues with some businesses as these subsidies dry up.
Yeah, absolutely. Subsidies have definitely helped keep people up and running, but it's figuring out where you're going to go in the next 18 months and further beyond. What changes are permanent, which ones aren't? Where are your new customers? What are they looking for? And how is your business going to operate? Are people going to stay at home full-time? Are they going to move across the country and continue to work for you, and things like that? And there hasn't been a lot of time to sit back and reflect for a lot of people who were reacting to it. But I think now is the time, as we're hopefully coming out of it.
I would like to add to Dolores a little bit, though. I mean, let me be clear here. We are, and I think the majority of the smaller businesses in our industry are and will remain in survival mode for the foreseeable. Our visibility of customer demand is definitely growing. There's no doubt it's growing, but it's still significantly less than what it was before the pandemic. As we previously mentioned, the supply chain is adding a lot of complexity and cost to our business as well. And we didn't have, quite frankly, a lot of time to kind of do the thinking, but we had to kind of focus that there. So we've used a couple of expressions. One is we have to kind of separate the urgent from the important. So we have to find the time as a team to identify what the important is, and then try and bring that into the narrative of everyday operation in the company. So we have 90-day plans and 90-day commitments that we'd hold ourselves accountable for as we deal with the urgent. And then the second thing we did is we talked about we have to be able to think around the corner. So you give me a great example. What happens if you can't get glass? What's your alternate solution? So you have to think around the corner to find that. So another, we talk about pivot being an overused word. Another overused word is nimble. We've had to be nimble in terms of our ability to execute, but also think. I bet you the vast majority of your members have had zero time off over the course of the last 18 months. I'll speak personally. I've had 1 week off, with the exception of public holidays in the last 20 months. If you try and deal with the urgent versus the important. So I think we still are in survival, but the upside is we're definitely climbing up the mountain as opposed to fall into free fall, which we thought we would be in March 2020. So we definitely see a light ahead of us. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's good. I think we've all been so busy putting out fires that it's easy to just get caught up in that. And you're right. Like so many of our members haven't had any time off, and they've been working around the clock. And honestly, that pace is just not sustainable. It's we hear lots of stories about mental health and burnout, and people just walking away from careers and jobs, and because it's just too much. And so we got to get better at managing all of it. And you're right, distinguishing between the urgent and the important is good advice.
Speaking of managing, you tasked me with time management, and it looks like we're coming up on the end of our time here. I'd like to thank all three of you for telling us your stories. It's great to connect with our members and get this information out there to help other people. So thank you very much for the great conversation. Dolores, why don't you let us know what we got coming up next week?
Yeah. And thanks to our panel today. It was a fantastic conversation. I always learn so much. Next week, we're going to have a conversation around, this is going to be good, the state of politics, how the role of politicians has changed, the impact of social media to the role, and just some general observations about what we saw during the recent federal election. Joining us for the conversation will be Dave Meslin. He's the author of Tear Down, Rebuilding Democracy from the Ground Up. And we're going to have a couple of other surprise guests pop in as well. A couple of local politicians, I say. To all of our listeners, send us the topics that you're talking about because we want to talk about them too. Thanks again for tuning in and have yourselves a great week.